how can you tell if your symptoms were caused by trauma, or if it's even related to trauma, so that you can tell, are any of the things that might work for trauma, might they help with your symptoms? And I think of it as kind of like the leopard's spots. When you see spots on a big cat, you know it's a leopard and not a lion. There's another phrase from Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, who's the founder of Body Mind Centering, and hers is, the mind is like the wind and the body is like the sand. If you want to see how the wind is blowing, you look at the sand. And in medicine, we tend to think that the ripples in the sand, that there's some cause right there. But what we're learning from trauma is that those are evidence of what's happened, what kind of wind was blowing, or whether the waves were coming in. And so what I'm really starting to think after 20 years of the research is that if you have chronic symptoms, the chances are that there's some link to trauma in your past. Just like if you see spots on a leopard, it's a leopard and not a lion. And so it's this sense that I think most symptoms, most chronic conditions are linked to trauma. And it comes back to that article in Nature in May 2020 of there may actually be, from everything they're seeing with genetics and in their research, maybe there's actually a single risk factor or single cause, which is kind of mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. So as far as symptoms go, this is something we could look at to see if chronic symptoms that people are experiencing have come from trauma. I guess, what does this mean for treatment? And, this whole event is about, really overcoming PTSD and overcoming PTSD symptoms. So do you think that prevention of those symptoms is possible, or can you reverse any of these symptoms?
They are reversible. I mean, that's the thing. The challenge can be that if it's decades after a lifetime of difficult experiences and neglect or abuse in childhood and few positive experiences and more things that have added on, it tends to take longer than we may want or realize or recognize. But the fact that these are reversible is huge. And this is Navio's proposal with the cell danger response, is that it's a healing cycle that got stuck. So all these different tools, whether it's mind-body practices or slowing down and coming into the present moment, mindfulness practices, these are all actually working to send different information from the present to help the nervous system shift out of where it's caught from the past, really. Mm-hmm. And so when we think of symptoms, if you grew up in a household where it was safer if you were quiet, or if you kind of took care of the adults in the system, or you were a people pleaser, a lot of us with chronic illness are people pleasers, even in subtle family systems with no abuse, these are patterns that are built on a survival response. And so working with those, cognitive therapy is not something that's traditionally thought of as a way to work with trauma. Or maybe I should take that back. It's still the most studied and most cited research, cognitive behavioral therapy. And so people think it's a good one for trauma. What it may be really good at is helping us recognize that we have beliefs that may not actually be true or accurate, and work with those. But what I think are really helpful are the trauma therapies that are based in the somatics, because trauma is not in our conscious awareness, it's in our bodies and nervous systems, and we access it through things like sensation or imagery. And so I think it's really what appeals to you. Where do you start? Where do you want to start? Is it with a mind-body practice? Is it with changing your diet? Because that actually decreases a lot of threat responses or inflammation, and it creates more room for the system to begin to heal. And so for some people, it's trying these different pieces, and for others, it's going straight for trauma therapy. And I'd say if you've got a chronic illness and you're open to it, do as many of these as you can, because they all chip away at different parts of the paradigm of the pathways that are happening.
Got it. Thank you. I'm glad that you mentioned diet in there too, because I think we may have talked about that a little bit last time. And I was wondering that as you were talking, right? Because, right, where does that come into play? Lifestyle choices, exercise, diet, those kinds of things, based on having trauma, stuck in us, so to speak. And how does that influence things? So okay, awesome.